Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another upgrades video. In today's upgrades video, we are taking a look once again at my Palmetto State Armory PA-10 Gen 2. Before we get this video started, as always, there are a bunch of links down in the description that you guys can check out if you are looking for a way to support the channel. Along with those links, if you want to support what I do here on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Comment down below, let me know what you think of the video. All of that stuff helps defeat the YouTube algorithms that really suck. Guys, this is definitely not the first time that my PA-10 Gen 2 has been on the channel. I've actually already done an upgrades video on this rifle, but as you guys are going to see, I've changed a few things on it, and I've also given it this disgusting rattle can job that I know I'm going to get roasted for down in the comment section. This will probably be getting changed in the future. It's really not too bad, but on camera it looks incredibly light, and I wanted it to come out a lot darker than this, but that's just kind of what you get sometimes with a rattle can job. And in this case, it's still not terrible when it's compared to the surroundings in my area. It's actually really not too bad, but I will be just putting a little bit of a darker coat of paint on here in the future whenever this kind of wears down a little bit more. I wanted to bring it to the range to kind of give you guys an update on how this rifle has been performing. It's one of those guns in the collection that really doesn't excel at anything, but also isn't really terrible at anything either. And I think one of the main reasons for that, as I've talked about in other videos on the PA-10 Gen 2, is the gas tube length on this particular rifle. But as far as the upgrades that I've made to the gun since you guys last saw it, you will remember that I had on here the Sig Sauer Sierra 3 BDX, and this one's the 6.5 to 20 by 52 optic. Very cool optic. It actually hooks up via Bluetooth on your phone and app, and there's a bunch of technology here. I use it just as a standard scope, and it's really not too bad at all. The glass is just fine, and for the price point that these optics come in at, they're actually not terrible for all of the technology that it has. However, with that being said, I noticed very quickly when I brought this rifle to the new range that we're shooting at now, where we can kind of run around and shoot long guns, the moment I got past 30 yards up towards the target, this thing just really started to have an issue as far as field of view and also fast target acquisition. You guys know if you have AR-10 variants out there, especially in direct gas, they tend to have a good bit of recoil, and the PA-10 definitely fits into that category a good bit. So when you're trying to actually get this scope up close, 30 yards in, doing some fast shooting, it is very difficult to get fast follow-up shots. Can it be done? Yes, absolutely, but it definitely takes a second. So in the future, I think I'm going to go with a 45-degree offset red dot for that type of shooting. I'm probably going to do something like that and opt out of any 45-degree offset sights because I'm trying to save as much weight as possible, because as this thing sits, it is definitely not a lightweight rifle. This thing weighs a good bit, especially when you're running around with it at the range. I had actually a white light on here. It was a Streamlight Pro Tac, and it was just their standard rail mount Pro Tac light, and that worked just fine. I love those Streamlights. I have them on a bunch of other guns, but I started realizing that there's just way too much weight up here in the front portion of the gun, considering this is a standard, more heavy barrel profile on this PA-10. I just really did not want to deal with the added weight, and for the role that this rifle has for me, it was just not a necessary upgrade to have. So I ditched the light, but I did keep the Magpul bipod, which has been working incredibly well. And you guys know on most of my DMR guns, just like the 223 Wild DMR that you guys just saw, I prefer to have a vertical grip of some type behind my bipod. I feel like this works great for maneuvering the rifle around, especially when you're running around with a lot of extra weight on the gun. When it comes to the bipod, especially if you're running it with a can on up here, it really helps out to have this bipod, and whenever you're coming up on barriers and different things like that. Moving back a little bit, I've mounted a Magpul sling loop, and this is the one that goes right to M-LOK. Unfortunately, on this PSA rail, they actually don't give you any sections for sling mounting capabilities. There's no QD slots anywhere or anything like that, and I do think that would really be nice to see on a rail like this. But throwing on this sling attachment point, I utilized one of the Blue Force Gear HK style hooks, and that actually works out really nicely. I switched out for a BCM grip. I believe I had this in the first upgrades video, and the one thing I did change, just like my other 223 Wild DMR, I went with a standard mil spec. Actually, this one is a military surplus A2 stock, and I really like the A2 stock on my DMR rifles. That's just my personal preference. I actually had an MOE fixed stock on the first upgrades video, and that stock worked just fine, but I just like the look and the length of pull and the feel of the A2 stock a lot better. And I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering how the heck I have this sling mounted on this A2 stock, because the A2 stocks do not come with a QD attachment point. And I actually had the help of the gunsmith at the shop that I work at. We actually had these small little QD sockets. I believe the company that makes this is like Impact Weapon Solutions or something along those lines. And it's not necessarily designed for this. However, we realized if you drill a hole through the side of this A2 stock, the ring that comes with it to mount it on the stuff that it's actually designed for works perfectly for this A2 stock and actually gives you a very nice QD attachment point that you can simply use to lock that sling on that A2 stock without problems. And that is a really nice, comfortable, more modern way to actually mount a sling to this A2 stock rather than having to use duct tape or put the sling down here and have it be uncomfortable. This really works out pretty well, and that was a super affordable piece. For charging handle, I do have on one of the BCM 762 AR-10 charging handles. This is the older style of BCM charging handle, so it has that really nice latch that actually like works well rather than the new ones that don't work too well. And I really like that charging handle, especially with the optic that's on here now. It gives you a lot of extra to hold on to. As far as the actual shootability of this rifle at the range, how am I liking the PA-10 now that I've done a few more upgrades to it and I've brought it to the range a few more times and got to run around with it? I think overall the rifle's fine. I don't really necessarily have any complaints about it, but the big issue is the gas length that's on here now. So the PA-10 Gen 2s specifically came with a mid-length non-adjustable gas block. And with that, you're going to get a lot of pluses and minuses. So the reason why they went with a mid-length gas system is because typically on an AR-10, they can be occasionally finicky when it comes to a direct gas AR-10. We're talking maybe it doesn't like certain types of ammo and other things like that, and you'll see that sometimes with a rifle-length gas system. So they decided to go with a mid-length, and what that's going to do is make this thing pretty freaking overgassed as it sits, but it's going to eat any ammo you put through it, and that is absolutely the case with this PA-10. Whether it's steel case, brass, any type of ammunition I'm putting through this, I have never had a single malfunction. It works just fine, unsuppressed. And it is definitely gassy, unsuppressed. The recoil is pretty stout, and I even put a rifle buffer in here with extra tungsten weights to hopefully kind of calm down a little bit of that recoil coming back, and still it could probably use even more. This thing still has a good amount of muzzle rise to it when you're shooting it, and you can definitely tell that that bolt is flying to the rear with some authority. Now, the other issue with that mid-length gas system is it runs well and does all that stuff unsuppressed, and that's really what that mid-length is designed for. The moment you put the suppressor on there, and you guys will remember me talking about the first time that I ran this rifle at the range suppressed, it having some hiccups, and then the second time I don't believe I really ran it suppressed at all for the upgrades video. Now I have added the Silencer Co. ASR flash hider, and obviously I was running my Silencer Co. Omega at the range. With the added tungsten weights in the buffer in the rear of the gun, I actually was able to shoot the gun without malfunction suppressed, but I could just feel how overgassed this setup was. I mean, the bolt was just flying to the rear, and I knew I was probably going to have a malfunction because the rounds were just barely trickling out, and that was not because the bolt was having an issue extracting the round. That was because the bolt was traveling to the rear of the gun so fast with so much authority that the extractor was actually tipping up over the rim of the bullet and barely grabbing it because it was coming out of the chamber so hard. So when it comes to suppressing this gun with a mid-length gas system, I just don't really see it as a usable option. Did it run without issue? Yes. Would I probably have gotten an issue if I ran more than, say, one magazine suppressed at the range, which I did? Probably. And is it going to cause long-term wear to the gun? I would almost guarantee it. Now, I greased the crap out of the locking lugs on the bolt. Typically, I don't do that on AR pattern rifles, but on an AR-10 that's direct gas, it's almost a necessity. And you guys will remember I was experiencing almost rounding over of the locking lugs, and you guys can almost see it there on camera. I almost guarantee it if I can focus that camera right, but there's a little bit of shiny metal going on right about there on the locking lug already, and that is actually a little bit common on direct gas AR-10s with this gas length, and that is just because of how violently the bolt is extracting out of the chamber. That is a huge issue that comes along with AR-10 variants that are direct gas. The platform itself, aside from the fact that this is a Palmetto State PA-10, just direct gas AR-10s in general are not the best platforms in my opinion. Ideally, I would want to go in the future with a rifle length gas system. I think that is kind of the best spot to be around when it comes to a direct gas AR-10. What that is going to allow you to do is still cycle ammunition just fine. I don't think it needs to be this gassed up with a mid-length gas system. I've seen rifle length guns have no issue cycling ammunition, and it's also going to run just a little bit more pleasantly, and it will probably have a much better job running suppressed. When it comes to accuracy of the gun itself, this is another thing that a lot of AR-10 variants just simply don't do well. I couldn't tell you why it is. They just tend to be not the most accurate guns in their class. There are a lot of AR-10s that are incredibly accurate. This is just not one of them. Now, of course, there's a lot of shooter error involved there, but I'm seeing this gun as pretty much a 2 MOA gun without a doubt. Now, at the range, this most recent range day, we were shooting it at about 70 yards, getting about 1.5 inch groups with standard brass ball ammunition. And I was using the bipod. There was a lot of human error involved there, but you guys are going to be seeing my groups up on camera probably right around now. And it did fine. Combat accuracy, no problem at all. But with this PA-10, you definitely can't really expect like match grade accuracy. I'm sure if I did my part in really trying to find the load that this rifle in particular likes, it would do just fine. But when it comes down to it, it just doesn't really seem like the most accurate gun ever, which is why I say I don't really hate on the rifle at all in the collection. It shoots fine, unsuppressed. I don't have a ton of issues with it. It's not broken. It's not breaking. I don't feel like it's going to break. It just doesn't really do anything that great. I would much rather pick up one of my 5.56 rifles because the accuracy is better, the shootability is better, and it runs suppressed without problems. I just don't have that little oomph of extra power of the 308 in the magazine. I'm sure the newer generations of the PA-10 would do a much better job. They did reprofile the entire bolt carrier group. They put all the new ones out with a rifle length gas system, and it is also an adjustable gas block. So all of those are really nice added features to the newer version of the PA-10s, and I think they really did a good job. They listened to a lot of customer feedback, and those newer ones are probably a lot better. I may even take a look at one of those in the future. That is going to wrap up this upgrades video on the PA-10. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you have any other questions about this rifle in particular or anything else on the channel, please feel free to let me know down below in the comments section, and I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out the description for all the links to all of the other ways that you can support me here on Firearm Freedom. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.